Welcome to our Game of Thrones Part 2 discussion. I'm Kate, and this is Jennifer Harris, our library director.
Hi, Kate.
And we are joined by the beautiful Karina. And we're talking about Part 2 of Game of Thrones. Now, this was a big section, but a lot of stuff happened, so this should be a pretty interesting discussion. This was from page 272 to 594. So it's quite a bit. It's 320 pages. But the next section will be a little shorter.
Did you divide it that way because of the action that was in it?
Kind of, no. I first, went like this with my hands and picked out like sections that were kind of like the same size, and then I looked at where they landed and tried to figure out what made sense as far as when conclusion of certain actions happened. So I just wanted to share with everybody that someone, a wonderful, mysterious stranger, came to the circulation desk and gave us these pamphlets for touring the Game of Thrones filming locations in Belfast. So they're really neat pamphlets, beautiful maps, and you can actually meet the wolves that play Summer in Greywind if you do this tour. So it's very exciting. So we want to thank whoever shared these with us. We enjoyed them a lot. We have them here.
We're not letting anyone take them.
We're not letting anybody take them. Hello, are you here for the Game of Thrones discussion?
I hope so.
Excellent.
Thank you. I won't step on anything.
Have a seat.
Oh, look at this.
We were just sharing, somebody
Love
dropped
that.
off
Love that.
Game of Thrones
Yeah.
tour maps. So we were just sharing those. And yeah, we have our wonderful, you can't see it on the camera, but we have that 3D map there.
Could you aim the camera that way? So I'm Jennifer Harris, Kate Gomes.
Okay. Karina Chavez. Carol Bogan.
Hi,
Nice
Carol.
to meet Carol.
We're live streaming on our Facebook page, so you're sitting in a safe spot if you don't want to be showing on the action. Otherwise, we're happy to turn it your way.
Okay, we have Tom. I was wondering if you'd say a few words about, you have this wonderful garden party coming up at the end of the summer, and I just wanted us to plug it a little bit.
Oh, thank you. Very good. Well, yes, the Victoria Summer Garden Party on Saturday, July the 29th, here at the Library in the Garden. We're going to be featuring, honoring 3 organizations that are helping to build a better world. The literacy program here at Plymouth Public Library, the Plymouth Farmers Market at Plymouth Plantation, and the Habitat for Humanity. So come register online at the library homepage, and we hope to see you for tea on the 29th. Thank you.
And just a reminder for everybody, Sunday is the day. There will be the Season 7 premiere of Game of Thrones. We're hoping this guy, Drogon, makes an appearance. Yeah. So we're very excited. We're so excited. Yeah, he's actually pretty cuddly.
But not in real life.
Not the real Drogon. So we're so excited about the premiere here at Plymouth Public Library that we're actually the staff is actually going to get together at 9 o'clock on Monday before we open and discuss the Season 1 premiere. We were going to film that on Facebook, so anybody can join us on Facebook. The library will not be open at that time, but we will. We want to share our first reactions with everybody, so it will be available on Facebook.
It's like around the water cooler.
The water cooler. While we're all
cooler.
enjoying our morning coffee before we open the library.
Well, we don't enjoy. We work hard before we open the library.
But we'll be drinking the coffee probably.
Yeah,
maybe
we'll be talking
camera. Okay, so let's jump into it. It's a very busy section of the book. So first off, we learned something about Jaime and Cersei's children in this section of the book. We find out that they are not King Robert Baratheon's children. They are, in fact, Jaime and Cersei's children. So what I was wondering is, did that change anybody's perspective about what Jaime did in the first part of the book in regards to throwing Bran out the tower? Now that you know that Marcella, Joffrey, and Tommen are Jaime's children. Does it change your perspective? Because what might have happened to these children if it had been discovered that they were born of incest and they weren't born of the king? Even Ned theorizes that Robert would probably put them to death if he discovered that they weren't his. So, does it change your perspective knowing that Jaime may have been not only protecting himself and his sister, but his children?
Discuss amongst yourselves.
Because it did change it a little for me. When I first saw I watched a couple episodes of the show and then read the book. And when I discovered in the book that they were, in fact, Jaime and Cersei's children, it did kind of change it for me.
So is this? Did the Hand before Ned find this out? Is that why he got killed?
That's the theory. Yeah, that's the theory in the section of the book. That's what this is the information they believe Jon Arryn died for.
Okay. How did he find it out?
He found it out. He was searching out all of King Robert's bastard children, and everyone he went to meet looked exactly like the king. Jon Arryn's last words were, "The seed is strong," and they thought it was maybe in reference to his own child, who actually is quite a weakling. And it turns out what he meant was that, no, Robert's children look like Robert. And then Ned had this book of Westerosi genealogy, and he went back and he could see that with every union there had been in the past between a Baratheon and a Lannister, the child always came out looking more Baratheon than Lannister. Now, this probably isn't exact genetic science, right. But none of the children look like Robert at all. None of Cersei's children look like Robert at all. So,
did she have any children by Robert?
She had a child that she had him imported. So
she had him what?
She had an abortion.
Oh,
so we don't know.
Oh.
Yeah, she said that Jaime took her to a woman to cleanse her when she discovered she was actually pregnant with Robert's child.
Oh, because her family believes in mating amongst.
No, the Targaryens believe in mating among themselves. The Lannisters haven't always believed in this. This is something new with Jaime and Cersei. Tywin married a cousin, Joanna, his wife. Cersei and Jaime and Tyrion's mother was Tywin's cousin, but not blood brother and sister marriages.
Don't brother and sister marriages produce children of incest who are somewhat damaged? I mean, the genetic pool is so far reduced for that close relationship among the parents.
Right, and that does come into play with the Targaryens a little bit. There is a saying about the Targaryens, because they married brother to sister for so many generations, that when a Targaryen is born, the gods flip a coin, and either the Targaryen is a great man or he's insane. The
Mad King.
Yeah, the Mad King, King Aerys. And I think there can be an argument made for maybe Viserys a little bit. He's not so great a guy.
Right.
And I don't think we're working with exact genetic science, but there is a little bit of that coming into play with the Targaryens. So I think it made Ned think differently about the situation with Bran being thrown out of the window. He said on page 486, when he was confronting Cersei in the Godswood at King's Landing, he said to himself, what would he have done if it had been the life of a child that was unknown to him versus one of his children? And he doesn't know what he would have done. And then he thought, what would Cat have done? He thinks that maybe Cat would have made a similar decision. So,
you mean by throwing him off so as not to reveal
not to reveal the relationships and
adultery.
put the lives of the children at risk. So it's just one of those things where, going into the story, at first I thought Jaime Lannister was a complete villain. And then was like, well, maybe not. When Robert is dying, Ned refuses to tell Robert at that time that the children aren't his.
He had the chance to, but didn't.
Yeah, he had the
He
chance to
spared
come
him
clean.
that.
He spared him. Hello, are you here for the Game of Thrones discussion?
Oh, actually, down the house.
Ned says to himself, "The lies we tell for love," which kind of echoed for me what Jamie says when he tosses Bran out the window. He says, "The things I do for love." Yeah. So on page 287, Catelyn is fervently hoping that the conflict between the Starks and the Lannisters doesn't come to war. But then on page 292, she orders her father's men to capture Tyrion, an act that will almost certainly lead to war. So in just 5 pages, she's completely committing an act that would totally...
When she exposed him at the end?
At the end, and then she took him captive.
I was going to text you and say, I think Caitlin just started a war.
Yeah, she did. Essentially.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely sowed the seeds.
Yeah.
Yeah. And,
but then she kidnapped him. And
she kidnapped him and took him to the Eyrie. So... What did you think of Catelyn's actions there? Because it is something that she does that's very highly criticized in the fandom. When you go on the Game of Thrones and Song of Ice and Fire message boards, there's a lot of criticism for this act.
Did she really think Tyrion did it?
She did.
Yeah, because I forget what evidence they had that...
The dagger that Peter Baelish told them belonged to Tyrion.
Right. So, I mean, I think she was trying to avenge her son. You know, I think she was just probably wanted to believe it, and I don't know that she captured the guilty party.
Right. Well, she had no reason to believe that Peter would lie to her, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, except for he doesn't seem very trustworthy from the get-go.
He doesn't, but she knew him when he was a child, and those bonds you form in childhood sometimes. You know somebody when they're young, and you don't know them when they're an adult. Kind of,
yeah.
So, I mean,
so it's not surprising. It's just a mother. I think mother's reaction. So that's not. I mean, it's shocking, but it's not that.
She did it in a very public way, and there was one point where she said, "Should I do it or not? Or whatever I'm going to do is going to be big." And then she decided to go forward with it. So,
and in part, like when I was reading it, I felt that she maybe only did it because he recognized her, because she was kind of sitting in the corner, and then that silly singer jumped up and called his attention over to their area.
Right.
And
that's right.
And that's when she stood up and made that proclamation, saying, who here is loyal to my father?
Yeah.
Will you help me with this man?
Yeah.
Because before the pages previously, she was very kind of logically thinking, if they went to war, who is loyal to who? She was going through all the people who were loyal to the Tullys, who the people who were loyal to.
Yeah.
And then it does feel like the first blood that was shed in this Stark Lannister conflict really did come as kind of a direct result from this, because that's when Jaime Lannister, after finding out that his brother's been taken, attacks Ned and his men in the street in that scene with the 20 Lannister men versus the 3 or 4 Stark men.
Mm-hmm. It just seemed to me like Caitlin was being a very bold woman. So the female characters are very strong or bold or in the middle of the story. It's no shrinking violence.
No.
Right?
Yeah, you're right.
I mean, I was surprised when she actually went to King's Landing. I thought that was a bold move.
I have a comment from Karen on the train. I think she was put on the spot there in the inn.
I think that's what happened. I think that maybe she didn't plan
Did she
to do
already
anything.
have the support of the people in the room?
There were already people in the room who owed her father loyalty.
But they didn't know it was her.
They didn't know it was
She
her.
was
laying low.
She was not being Caitlin. She was just a traveler.
Yeah.
She with her supposed father. And so she would have been fine with that if Tyrion hadn't noticed her.
Yeah.
No, that was definitely, she was put on the spot. Yes, Karen, I agree with you.
So Robert says, I was never so alive as when I was winning this throne, or so dead as now that I have won it. He acknowledges that he's a bad king and that Joffrey would be an even worse king. But I wanted to talk about that quote, I was never so alive as when I was winning this throne, or so dead as now I have won it. That's a very relatable quote, I feel like. Aren't there sometimes things...
Sure, it was like all his dreams come true, and then not what he expected.
And then, not what he expected it to be.
You know? Well, he's a brawler.
Yeah, he's a fighter.
He doesn't necessarily want to be a ruler, which takes a cooler head.
Yeah, but it still must be, intoxicatingly...
the power kind of,
the fighting part leading up to it.
Or no, just becoming king, being crowned king.
Yes,
because
But then
he was never
the drudgery of actually ruling people. It's also relatable right now in what's going on in our landscape.
Yeah, I mean, I think that sometimes
the chase is more fun.
I think that's true, and I think you see that happen in a lot of different areas of life. I think we've all had that friend who's chasing that girl or chasing that guy, and then once they have them in their lives, they realize, oh, this wasn't. He or she is not necessarily the prize. That this relationship was not going the way I thought it would, or even with. I've seen it happen to friends with promotions. Oh, work so hard, and then I don't actually like this. So I thought that was a very relatable quote. So he acknowledges that he's a bad king, and that Joffrey would be an even worse king. And the only way to really put a good ruler in charge now is to put in a hand who can do the job of ruling. But he seems to disregard Ned's counsel so often.
Headstrong.
Yeah, he's really headstrong.
Well, because he's the king.
He's the king.
He gets to do whatever.
Yeah.
But Ned did tell, and Ned might be kind of shy of coming across really strong. It was Ned was the one who said, but why he was set up to fight, why Robert was set up to fight. Isn't Ned the one who said, don't you think your wife, when she proclaimed it loudly, was that Ned? Or the other guy, I could be a little bit further in, but it was why Robert had to fight the next day in the tournament was because the wife
challenged
him in front of everyone. And I thought that's what Ned's point was. No one's going to hurt you. You're the king, so you're not going to win fair. So I think Robert was listening to him.
Yeah, but then it comes to things like putting.
He's definitely a trusted friend. Robert definitely
does trust him. But when it comes to killing Targaryens and killing Daenerys, Robert will not listen to Ned under any circumstances. He just has that blind side.
Right.
And even Ned didn't want to have the tourney of the hand in the first place. He thought it was a waste of money.
Right.
And it seems like he wants Ned to handle the drudgery of ruling. But then when it comes to these decisions where Robert wants his way, then Robert wants his way.
Yeah.
That's that. So Robert also seems to believe that with the right woman by his side, Lyanna versus Cersei, that he would have been a better man and by extension a better king. Do you believe that?
I'm sure he would have been happy. Again, it's the chase versus reality, so who knows? But I think he's clearly not happy with Cersei.
He's clearly not.
And I think even if I don't know. I think there would have been a time where he was happy with.
There might have been a period. I know Lyanna herself said to Ned, he's not going to be faithful. He's not going to be faithful.
Yeah.
But did she have a strong personality?
She did, and Ned does say to Robert, you didn't know her like I do. You saw the beauty of the girl and didn't see the steel that was underneath her. You didn't know who, because she's, from all accounts, kind of like Arya. Who is much. Arya's no Sansa.
Yeah.
So, he does have kind of a tendency to kind of cling to the past, Robert. He holds on to his glory days as a warrior a lot in his conversations with Ned, and he's very much rooted in his glory days.
Yeah.
And I think holding on to his thoughts of Lyanna are a part of holding on to that past.
Yes.
Well, that's the unknown.
Yeah.
And when you suffer loss at that point, it changes everything anyhow. But Cersei doesn't sound like she'd be a great, very loving to him anyhow.
She claims to have been at one point, but I don't even know if I believe that.
Well, I think, part of that was Cersei was originally, she had thought, supposed to marry Rhaegar before he married Elia Dorne. So, and then Robert, of course, killed Rhaegar, and Cersei was very infatuated with him. But I think that she was willing to give Robert kind of a shot, but then on their wedding night, he called her Lyanna while they were together, and that kind of soured Cersei.
That's just wedding night nerves.
Happens to everybody. So,
I think this is the part that I'm enjoying about reading, is that it makes them human. In whatever fantasy world this is with dragons and all sorts of odd beings in their dresses and mail and all that. These kind of questions about his lost love or death or how he's ruling as a king. I think that makes this very relatable.
I agree. Yeah, I think the characters do seem really human to me, and they have really human struggles. Sansa is a girl who loves romance and the chivalrous tales of knights and their ladies. Her love of these stories colors her worldview. She seems unwilling to learn from what happened on the Trident, or even the ugliness during the turning of the hand doesn't change how she views the world. Why does she cling to these romantic ideals in the face of all the ugly reality around her? Because
Good question.
she's kind of been smacked in the face with reality a couple of times.
Yeah.
And it didn't seem that even, it kind of, I found it kind of interesting reading the section where she is there watching the tourney, and there's all this, a young man dies. Sir Gregor kills that young man, and he dies right in front of Sansa, and she's kind of fascinated by it, but she says, I am of Stark of Winterfell, and I'm strong enough to sit here and not freak out that there was violence that happened to me, but she seems kind of unaffected by it at all. And then at the very end of the tourney, when there's the ugliness between Sir Gregor and Sir Loras, and then Sir Gregor beheads his horse. But she doesn't seem, to her it's all like the beauty of the feast and spending time with Joffrey. It's all like the romanticism of it.
Yeah. Overtakes the reality of it more, weighs more than the reality of it to her.
Today,
I don't know why.
Today I was in a discussion, and they were talking about the sharks out on White Horse Beach, and they were watching, and I guess there were 4 seals, and then you turn around and the 4 seals are gone, and the fin is above. So I'm going, oh my God, I can't believe it. And I'm going, here I am reading Game of Thrones. I could care less that they chop heads off, but don't tell me that a shark is eating 4 seals. So, the animal.
The animal. And you would think because in what happened in the Trident, she lost her wolf. The end result of that ended up being that lady was killed.
Right.
And
unfairly,
and really unjustly killed. And
which was just to set Sansa up to hate Arya.
Yeah, she blamed Arya and didn't doesn't blame Joffrey at all.
It's one of those times where she was smacked in the face with it, and still didn't want to
see how Joffrey was acting. That wasn't very princely.
Right.
Yeah.
So is Joffrey bad all the way through? I mean, I only got as far.
Are any of them really? I mean, that's bad all the way through.
We just keep talking alone.
No, that's quite all right. Actually, I'm not into this as much as you thought, and I didn't even read the second book. But I have watched the TV show. So
Okay.
I'm interested in your analysis.
So you've watched the series?
Yeah.
Which
On and
all
off. Pretty much all of them over the years.
Okay.
Although I'm sure I missed a few here and there.
Okay. So, I was asking about Joffrey because at the point that I saw it, he was very charming to her at the tournament, the tourney, and then he set it up for the Hound to walk her back, and then they had a very intense conversation.
So I was gonna,
which was very real.
And I was going to talk about that. What did everybody think of the interaction between Sansa and Sandor? Because there are a lot of people in the Game of Thrones and A Song of Ice and Fire fandom, a lot of the fans who see a romantic connection there.
Between Sansa. Well, my favorite quote, which I was going to text you, was he said, "I've just told you something that I've told no one else, and I will kill you if you tell anyone else." And I thought that's,
it's one of those like
internet. And I know it's used in other ways, but so here I am sharing something of deepest import to myself, and that puts you in danger for knowing it.
Yeah.
By me sharing it with you, you are now in danger.
Yeah.
Which I think happens in people telling secrets, and
I think so. Yeah.
At least in all the Law and Order and Matlock that I've watched.
No, it
Matlock is not far off from this.
No, this is very close to us. No, I think there is a little kind of subtle Beauty and the Beast thing going on there. I don't think that the people who see that connection are that far off.
Is he that horrible looking in the series?
Yes.
Visually?
Yeah, I can show you
He's
visually.
disfigured, for sure.
Yeah.
It's really good makeup.
And the description of how he got that way. His brother got mad at him?
Yeah, so he was playing with his brother's toy.
Yes.
And his brother, who was too old for toys, but it didn't matter, came home and saw him and pushed his head into the fire.
Mm. So. And I love how they keep saying, this is not your style, not time. And I love how they said that. Another thing that my favorite is 7 hells.
Yeah.
So instead of saying, or something, they say 7 hells. So that'll be my new.
Because there's 7 gods.
Okay, 7. I want one, of course.
Well, it depends on which Westerosi religion you're following, because there's a couple, but in the most popular one is the 7, the worshiping of the 7.
Karen says that was an intense scene.
It was an intense scene. Yeah.
When he.
When he was describing what had happened to him and sharing, this part of himself with Sansa.
Mm-hmm. And she didn't shrink. She was not a shrinking violet with that.
She wasn't. But why do we think that he felt like he should share with Sansa? What?
That's interesting.
So is that what you're saying? You think he's in love with it?
What is the motivation to come clean like that with someone who, he doesn't know her that well. He's sworn to Joffrey. She's Joffrey's betrothed. She's also much younger than him. She's probably, a child. She's a child, and he's like probably about 10, 15 years older than her.
So she represents purity.
Purity, innocence, maybe. She is
a clean slate.
Yeah.
Or maybe thinking because she's betrothed to Joffrey that she will be in his life anyhow.
Maybe. So, the Hound's brother Gregor is one of the series' most obvious villains. His list of evil deeds include rape and murder of children, possible patricide, and disfiguring his own brother. Loras is one of the handsome princes of Sansa's fairy tales brought to life. Yet Loras tricked his way into beating the mountain, and it was the Hound who ended up saving the day. Do you find that your perception of who are the good guys and who are the bad guys is always being challenged while reading? Because I think Sir Loras is supposed to be the stereotypical knight in shining armor he was held up as, but he purposely drove a mare who wasn't out on the list so that he could distract the male horses and win. So he only won by cheating, so that's not a very heroic act, really. And then the Hound, who has been one of the more ruthless characters in the book so far, he ran down the butcher's boy in the first section, ends up being the one who saves Sir Loras's life and drives off the mountain.
Well, more I'm challenged with figuring out all these families that they just keep throwing them at you.
Yeah.
And so it seems like everyone has some good and bad in them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
that's what I mean when I said it about Joffrey, but although he is,
I mean, if there was a spectrum.
Yeah. It's part of, that's like the result of all the incest too, though,
Maybe.
But anyway, so I think, they do a good job of showing both, a lot of the characters in both a good and bad light. And I don't know, it just makes you more sympathetic to them, even if they are horrible.
Yeah.
Or do horrible things.
Yeah, I mean, I think especially in a genre book, like a fantasy book, it's easy to have like this guy is a super villain, like this, you know, like
and only
completely,
bad,
and completely bad, and he's like and so and I think it's easier to get stuck into those stereotypes.
Yeah. Karen says the lines do blur a lot.
Yeah, they do.
But is that because families are involved?
Maybe.
You know, this isn't just a story with a bunch of strangers in a little town. There's all these family lines, and so they could be evil because they're protecting their family or thinking out for them or plotting the next thing. I think that brings out the bad or the good because of these intense family bonds, which is the basis of this whole book.
Yeah,
I could be off on that.
No, I think you're right. So there is a lot of intrigue in King's Landing, a lot of players in the game, and it's difficult to discern who is friend and who is foe. What did you think about the conversation Arya overheard in the Red Keep's basement? Here she was innocently chasing cats and stumbles upon two men walking down these basement halls talking about the lion and the wolf at each other's throats, and it sounds like they're arranging the whole aggression. And one of them goes so far as to say one hand was killed, another hand could be killed.
So her father's being threatened?
That's what Arya basically overhears, is that, and she's too young really to understand what she's overhearing.
But she knew it's important. She knew its significance of what it,
So what did she do with it? Did she run and tell her dad?
She tried to, but then she's like, I thought this man might have been a wizard, and he was talking about killing you, and it just came out kind of, and it was hours later that she finally got to her father because she got lost in the basements and ended up outside the castle and through a secret entrance and had to go back around and come back in. So it ended up being far removed from the time of the conversation to the time when she told her father what she had heard. And she's only 8 or 9, so it doesn't hard to keep all that information because there was a lot of intrigue. There really was a lot of intrigue in that that made it sound like something was being plotted.
Right.
And it made me think that, we thought on the surface, we think that, Ned is a player in the game, Cersei is a player in the game, but then you find out they're actually
other
pawns.
people.
Yeah. There's all sorts of scheming going on.
So the conversation? You said it was the lion and the who
and the Stark, right?
So is the lion and the wolf. So the dire wolf was the Starks, and the lion is the Lannisters.
Okay, all right.
And so,
but do they say who it is actually? Who's having the
No,
conversation?
so they don't. In the show, you can see who's having the conversation, right?
Okay.
You can see who it is, but you. Do we have a comment?
Yes, Karen says, I think Ned is definitely doomed. It was so frustrating that Arya couldn't communicate her fears clearly.
Yeah, it was, and as a reader, I was there like, no, Arya, come on, remember better. It was very frustrating, and who else? So when you read this and actually I think Tyrion says at some point that there are other beasts in the woods besides the lions and the wolves. So when you hear that there are these other players involved, are there names that come to you immediately? Like, Renly could be a possible player. Littlefinger could be a possible player. Varys could be a possible player. Like, there's all these different people who could have their hands in this.
Yeah, not immediately, not to me anyway, but affecting immediately having impact on what was happening was the people in power, and it wasn't really so. It was other people
manipulating.
Right. So it's not who you think is behind, everything.
because there's a lot of people in King's Landing who have at least a little bit of power, right? So we were talking after our discussion last week. You were talking to me about like the whole kind of bureaucracy and the how not last week, the week before, the money, how they have how it's like a real government kind of in the bureaucracy, and that led me to believe that small council is kind of like the cabinet, right? So it's just like
and everybody wants to get to them,
and everybody wants to get to them, and they
buy
then
them.
you know, and they have their own ambitions, right? Yeah, and it's so we have, you know, and it's kind of it almost kind of lines up with some of our cabinet positions too. You know.
So, but is it because they're trying to get to Robert, or the council's stronger
Whoever's in
than
power.
Yeah, I mean Robert is the ultimate power.
Yeah,
but it sounds to me like they were talking about creating war, and at one point they said even that the war was happening too quickly, and they needed to try to slow it down, and that was. It was kind of interesting because like, wow, so they started this conflict somehow, and now it's going too fast because there's a piece missing from the board that hasn't arrived yet. Maybe won't arrive for like 7 seasons.
right. I call that foreshadowing.
Yeah.
And so
do you know what you're expecting out of Sunday's show?
Do I know what I'm expecting? Well, this would be spoilery for anybody who hasn't read the book, but I think I know what I'm expecting. Dragons. I'm expecting a homecoming for Daenerys.
Yeah.
I would say. I'm expecting.
Will that be the first dragons, or dragons have been all along?
You got to keep reading the book, Jennifer.
The first one's in a long time.
Huh?
Yeah. The first one's in
the
a
first
long
one's
time.
in a long time.
Okay.
Yeah, but. Yeah,
it's a great dragon.
Yeah, Drogon is the largest and most
Is he
aggressive.
still going out around town?
He hasn't gone out too recently, but he'll probably go out again. Everybody loves Drogon. Yeah, he has a fan club. So yeah, it was there's a lot of power plays going on. That's why I thought this section of the book was so much fun. Is just because you get to see all the different power plays that are kind of going on, and that the intrigue is so much thicker than you really thought it was.
Right.
So Lysa and Robert Arryn are living out an Oedipedal nightmare, and neither seems fit to rule the Vale. Given all we've heard about Jon Arryn, how he was a good man and an honorable man, were you surprised by our first view of his family?
Yeah.
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 So
Can you name
strange.
some of the names on his family?
So Jon Arryn was the hand before Ned.
Okay.
And Lysa used to be Lysa Tully. She used to be she's Catelyn's sister. So Catelyn when they arrived, she hadn't seen her sister since the day they were both married, I believe.
Yeah. No, I think because she knew the child.
She's seen him when he was a baby.
Yeah.
So she hadn't seen her sister as a mother for ever, and she hadn't seen. So it'd been about 5 or 6 years since she'd last seen her sister, and Robert Arryn is a sickly child prone to having shaking fits, and he's still breastfeeding after being in kindergarten age. And it seems like almost like a pacifier kind of. He was fussing, so she just yeah. So it was one of those situations where you have something that's beautiful and natural, like a mother breastfeeding her child, and somehow George R. Martin's able to make it horrible and frightening.
Right. Yeah, disturbing.
Yeah, and not just because of his age, but because of their weird relationship and the way that she was really babying him to such an extent.
Right.
And Catelyn even stands there and thinks to herself, my child Rickon, who is 3, is more. So, what do you think the Vale's future would hold with such a lord and lady with them at the helm? If you were, and they said that the lords of the Vale were getting very restless,
very unstable.
Unstable.
That's would be my prediction, but
yeah, that's what I would think
Where's
too.
the Vale?
So the Vale of Ares right here.
Oh, okay. And King's Landing?
King's Landing is down there.
Oh, okay. And the Tully family's there.
Yes. So you can see how when we're down here in this section, everybody's kind of close together. So, not, I'm sure it would take, still many days riding to get from one to the other.
Right.
But they're closer together than, say, the Starks, who are way up here, or the Dornish, who are down here, or the Tyrells, or even the Lannisters. They're more closely close to the main kingdom, to King's Landing.
Right.
So if a war were to break out, the Tullys and the Arryns are a little bit more vulnerable just due to their proximity. Now, the Arryns do have their very impressive mountain fortress with their very frightening moon door. But
I don't know what the moon door is.
the moon door is how they execute people.
Huh?
So it's a castle. it's basically, it's almost like a castle in the
What would
sky.
Victoria say?
She would say off of their heads. What is it?
So the Eyrie is kind of a castle in the sky,
Yeah.
and so it's like really on the top of a mountain.
Mm-hmm.
So they have this door that just opens up into the sky, and when they
Oh.
want to execute someone, they just
Scoot them out.
throw them right out. That's what they say. We have no headsmen at the Eyrie. We just
Okay.
throw them right out from the
Moon door. It's a tough life.
It is a tough life.
Yeah.
But life in Westeros is not for the meek. It's not for. They do not fare well. But yeah, I would think that it was natural that there was so much restlessness, and they're desperate to have somebody marry Lysa and try to take over the rule of the Vale because she's so erratic. Now she was her reaction, seeing as she was the one who had sent the letter
Or did she?
Or did she? Well, she didn't deny that, did she?
No.
But she was the one who sent the first suspicious letter about the Lannisters and that they had killed her husband.
Mm-hmm.
And then
That Catelyn burned.
burned immediately. Yep. And then when she sees that Catelyn has taken the dwarf, she really freaks out about it. She doesn't. She didn't want war to be brought to her doorstep in such a way. But I thought that was kind of an interesting reaction to have for someone who was claiming that this family murdered her husband.
Right.
Very suspicious. And of course they have this feeling that their castle is impregnable. They can never be defeated from their perch high on the mountain.
Mm-hmm.
Is there something to that? Do we think? When I was reading that, I was like, could Catapult really not get up there? Like, if they were attacking the area, if there was really a war, could they really not catapult
Not
them
without them
castle?
knowing, right? They see them coming.
Yeah, they'd see them coming. So and they'd be high up, and we know that there's a very narrow path, very dangerous narrow path up the mountain to get. So it's not like an army could charge up the mountain.
Yeah.
So the only thing I could think of would be siege equipment to attack.
Or dragon.
Or from
Or
above.
dragons.
Right.
Yes, but they don't have dragons at this point.
Dragons can be very convenient
But as
when
you
you
say,
need them.
They're-
Arya
You need
says
them to
everyone
fly
can be
up
killed.
somewhere.
That's
Huh?
true.
Even Arya says everyone can be killed.
Yeah.
Anyone can be killed. So nobody's.
Nobody's
Yeah.
safe.
So I thought that was a
Right.
little bit of cockiness on Lysa's behalf. We're safe up here. Nobody can touch us up here.
Right.
And I was like, I wouldn't be that sure.
Right.
Even.
She's not in a very strong.
So Tyrion shares a sad and traumatic story about his first wife with Bronn. Did this story change what you think about Tyrion's character or his family or his upbringing? So he shared with Bronn the story about his first
Yes,
wife.
it was very sad.
And it was very sad. Very sad. And very sad that his father would treat him
Right.
in that way.
Yeah.
I think when I first read this this story, I just thought Tyrion was kind of a witty, funny little guy. And I knew he had made some comments about his father, so how a dwarf is always a bastard in his father's eyes and things like that. But I didn't expect this level of cruelty.
Right.
This was an especially cruel story.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very upsetting. And it does implicate Jamie, this version of the story makes Jamie complicit with his father's abuse, which is kind of upsetting too.
But was he complicit? Did he know how it was going to end up? I mean, I feel like he may have thought he was, doing his brother a solid.
I don't think that we ever. So but. With his father's version of that event.
The screen froze when you said the spoiler.
Oh, good. So it seems like as Dany gets stronger and more confident, her brother gets weaker. What did you think of Viserys' death? That was a pretty...
Yeah.
That was pretty, one of the most... I remember when I first read the book, and, the first time going through the show, thinking that was one of the most impressive deaths of the season.
Yes, for sure. Yeah.
So for those who may not be at this part or don't remember from the show that he has he has a golden crown. He threatens his sister in Vaes Dothrak, which you're not supposed to have any weapons in Vaes Dothrak. It's a very special place to the Dothraki. They allow no bloodshed. But he threatens his sister, his very pregnant sister, with a sword, and he said he was promised a golden crown. And Khal Drogo takes off his golden medallion belt, melts down the medallions, and pours the molten gold on Viserys' head. And that's how Viserys dies.
He gets his golden crown.
He gets his golden crown. And it was a very that was one of those moments when you're reading or you're watching where you're like, oh jeez. It was one of those more shocking moments. So what did you guys think about Vaes Dothrak or the Dothraki, being in Vaes Dothrak and seeing their customs? Because there's not a heck of a lot of exposure to different cultures in Westeros, so it's interesting to see this culture when you go over to Essos, or we'll call it the Dothraki Sea, and they have their own. It's a pretty well developed fictional culture. They have their special customs of the Dosh Khaleen, where the widows of the Khals go to be wise women. They have their rituals where Dany ate the horse heart to see if her son would grow to be strong, or these different. It just seems to be a very well developed culture.
Yeah.
And on the show, of course, they have the whole language. We actually have a How to Speak Dothraki, and it's downstairs. It's just like any of our other foreign language CDs. So if you want to learn how to speak Dothraki, we can help you out with that. But it's like a fully felt. I mean, this is a very well developed culture that we're working with here.
What's the Dewey number on that?
It's actually in the 800s and not the 400s. I had to make that decision because I was like, it's a fictional language. So what I did was I looked up where other libraries had put Klingon.
It's a tough call.
Yeah, I was like, where did other libraries put Klingon?
It's a whole language
Or I may have put it in the 700s for television. So, that's what I had to do, is figure out where did people put their Star Trek languages. That was what So Dany was right, though, right? Viserys was no dragon.
Not if he died by fire, basically,
Yeah.
Because they say fire wouldn't kill a dragon.
That's what she says. He was no dragon. Fire cannot hurt the dragon. Yeah.
Karen says, put it next to Klingon language.
Yeah, that's what I did. So, let's talk about Ned. So Ned makes a lot of decisions in these 300 pages that we just read. in his place, do you think you would have? Now we all have the gift of, we know what happens. So, but do you think you would have made the same decisions? So I actually,
as in telling Robert or not telling Robert,
or it's in a whole bunch of different decisions. So I read this for the first time 7 years ago, and then I listened to the audiobook for it about 3 or 4 years ago. And now I'm reading it again for these discussions because I got to stay fresh, and I have a hard time sometimes remembering what happened in the show versus what happened in the book. Like when I was reading some of these Dany chapters, I was waiting for her to say, "The last time you lay hands on me will be the last time you have hands," and she doesn't say that because it's in the show, it's not in the book. Yeah. But I was looking for it. So this time on the way through, because we're doing such a close read, I'm trying to pay so much attention. I actually made a list while I was reading of things that could potentially have been mistakes that Ned Stark made that could have saved the situation. Different choices. So in my list I have letting his daughters know they were being sent ahead of time, not sending the girls earlier. He had planned to send them right away, then he broke his leg, but then he didn't send them right away when he got consciousness again. He waited. Then not keeping a close enough eye on his daughters, knowing that there was intrigue going on. Letting Cersei know that he knew who the father of her children was.
That's pretty bold.
Yeah. Refusing Renly's offer. When Renly offered him 100 swords for them to take over the government, take it away from Cersei and Joffrey. He didn't tell Robert the truth. He didn't send Stannis a letter by Raven. Instead, he decided to send a letter to Stannis with his man. And then when his man was killed, they found this treasonous letter on the man. He ignored Littlefinger's advice. He didn't flee when Robert took a mortal wound. He didn't give up his plan when he heard that Renly had fled. And he expected the Westerosi institutions to remain intact in the face of Lannister greed. Took for granted that others would be as honorable as he is. So I feel like there are a lot of things that Ned could have done differently. But if he had done them, then he wouldn't be Ned, right? One of the things that occurred to me as I was making this list, as I was reading this section, was that I feel like Ned and Sansa are very much alike. Sansa has this belief in beauty and romance, and that everything should be lovely and splendid. And Ned believes in honor, and that people should be honored. Yeah, and they both believe in these things that, while are lofty, wonderful ideas, in reality just aren't
very hard to attain. Yeah,
very hard to attain, and very hard to things that are hard to expect out of other people because that idealism on other people. And so I thought that that was something that occurred to me. And Ned relies on honor an awful lot, and he relies on, when Robert passes, Ned relies on honor and the Westerosi norms to save him. He has this. It was signed by the king. He has a scroll. It was signed by the king. It has the king's seal on it. That should be the word. Cersei. The king is dead, rips it up, throws it away. Doesn't matter anymore. He's not the king anymore, so this is no good. And with most other people or most other rulers, then this would just be like, oh, okay, this is what the king said, this is what the king decreed, so this is what we do. In the face of Lannister greed, Lannister ambition.
So how could he have expected her to react that way? Or should he have known,
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's a lot of, you rely on your society to act a certain way in the face of certain adversity, right? And because it's just the way that things have always been. And Ned was relying on things to be the same way that they've always been.
Idealizing them.
Idealizing it. And it was something that it wasn't tangible. It wasn't something he could rely on. And, Cersei
probably should have expected her to not, honor her dead husband. Especially after knowing what he knew,
Right. He should have realized that she's just not. That's not how she plays the game. And she said, "You win or you die," and she meant it. And for all that, Cersei's not considered to be one of the more cunning or one of the more clever characters in the series.
Not yet.
Not yet. She was pretty clever here.
Mm-hmm.
She outplayed Ned.
Mm-hmm.
She did. She knew what to expect from him. And even I've seen it said that Cersei was no good judge of character or a good player of the game because she tried to seduce Ned in the Godswood. But from her perspective, she's the most beautiful woman in the country. She's the queen.
Mm-hmm.
And while Ned Stark is the honorable Ned Stark, he has a bastard son, so he's obviously expended his lust in some
Not
ways.
as perfect as
not as perfect as So she had in her mind, she had every chance to make that situation work, and when she couldn't use her beauty and her feminine wiles to bend him to her will, she chose force. She chose a more cunning sort of way, and I think maybe the seduction of Sansa, that she brought Sansa sort to her side as someone who idolized Cersei and loved Joffrey, and I think forming that connection, that bond, was a big part of a long con that she was running. Maybe she didn't know she'd use Sansa exactly.
She was playing the long game.
Playing a long game. Even if she wasn't going to use Sansa exactly for this purpose, she was going to use her at some point. She needed her at some point.
She wanted her to trust her,
she wanted her to trust her. She wanted her to be someone she felt like she could be her mother away from her mother, kind of deal. And I think when you could maybe argue that Ned and Robert were the first to break with the Westerosi tradition and Westerosi norms when they overthrew the government, because they did 15 years earlier overthrow their entire government.
Right.
So it could be
that had never been done before.
It hadn't been done since the Targaryens did it, centuries beforehand.
Right.
And there had been people who had tried, the Blackfyre rebellions, or there was a war called the Dance with Dragons, but those wars were Targaryens fighting other Targaryens.
And were not successful, clearly. So Ned and Robert were the first ones to lead a successful...
Jon Arryn, they were the first ones to really lead a successful rebellion against Targaryen rule. So it's just kind of interesting, and I think he definitely didn't count on Sansa's intense desire to stay in King's Landing, which is unfortunate. So there's a lot of there's just a lot of things that maybe he could have done differently, or he had a lot of opportunities to kind of change the tide, and he didn't take any of them. But
I feel like he thinks he was always trying to do the honorable thing.
Always trying to do what's right. Chasing that honor.
We have somebody who must have looked up the living language Dothraki and put the call number. It's 809.
I did put it in the 800. Good.
Book on CD.
Good. Yeah, because I was trying to I couldn't remember if I put it with the books, the stuff for the books, or the stuff for the television show. I think it probably should go with the stuff. I'm gonna second guess my past self on that and say they probably should have gone with the stuff for the television show, because they don't speak Dothraki in the book, right? They do a little bit actually. So maybe I was right.
That could be a course, cataloging Game of Thrones.
Cataloging fictional languages in general.
Sure.
So we're getting kind of towards the end, I think, of we're supposed to wrap it up a little bit after 7. Was there anything in this section that we didn't discuss that we should discuss? Do you guys want to? Do you have any predictions for Sunday night?
Now, is the episode starting on Sunday? Is that reflected in the book? I seem to remember reading that the books were behind the TV show.
Yeah, we have gone off source material now, so we are in all new territory.
So there's more shows than there are books.
There's more
Now.
now. So we actually started going off source material last season because there have only been 5 books. So I think there might have been some stuff last year, like the King's Moot, or
they just kind of spread it out.
That they just kind of spread it out. So there was some, like the King's Moot was in the last book, I think, in the Dance of Dragons. I might get that wrong, and somebody can correct me if I did. But there are. So there were some things from last season that were reflected in the books, but now I think we might be completely off source material.
So are the books going to then catch up with the plot of the series?
We're gonna knock on wood and hope so. So what I've heard.
That's not going to be too fascinating.
No, what I've heard is that the showrunners were walking around with a manuscript at some point, so that they do have whatever George has produced. But we do have a few chapters that have been released from Winds of Winter, and I can look up where those might be available and let people know, because some of them have been read out loud at different conventions, and some of them were published online. There are some chapters that have been released, and there are still hopes, I think, of maybe getting the Winds of Winter out late this year or early next year. We may have the 6th book before the 8th season, because I think what's going to happen with I would hope we do, because I think what's going to happen with the 8th season is we're actually going to skip 2018, and the 8th season isn't going to premiere until 2019.
Breaking my heart.
I'm sorry about that. But I think what else I've heard though is that when we get to those, because it's only 6 episodes that would be left.
But I enjoy reading the books just as much as the show.
It's fun. It adds depth. It adds layers. There's a lot more going on. I think the world building, especially in the books, because it's such a rich with the folk songs. They have all these. It's just like this very rich society and culture. Right. But I did hear that the 6 episodes of season 8, even though we have to wait a year for them, are going to be each an hour and a half long. So they'll each be about a movie. So we will, we will see. I think Sunday night's going to be exciting. I think we're going to see some White Walkers. We're going to see some dragons. I don't know if I don't have any death predictions or anything like that.
Not first episode.
Not for. You never know.
It's true. Yeah, none I can predict though.
Nothing I can predict. I can't. I have watched all the trailers and everything, and I've listened to a couple of podcasts where they're, and I feel like, when we start doing that, we go into Speculation Nation, which isn't so bad. We're going to be doing a lot of speculating next week.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask. We meet again next Wednesday.
We do meet again next Wednesday. We're going to be talking about all the different fan theories, but also some of the prophecies that have been made in text. So not necessarily prophecies from this book, but prophecies that have been made over the course of the 5 books in text, because there were some things that were prophesized in earlier books that happened in later books. Things like the Red Wedding were prophesized before they actually occurred. And we're talking about years and pages in advance.
Yeah.
So.
Are the White Walkers coming back shortly?
Oh, yeah.
And do they represent what is meant by winter is coming?
I think they do, yeah, because there's a great...
That was early, I think.
Yeah.
I think I missed the middle. I think I saw the beginning.
Yeah, so you do see the White Walkers right away, right? In the beginning is the very first scene. And it's like really it's really chilling. It's a really kind of like upsetting sort of scene with and then it's like all this intrigue happens in King's Landing, and we don't necessarily see the White Walkers again. But I was looking for I have too many little stickies here. I was looking for Old Nan describes the winter that's going to come and the long the long night it brings with it. And I know that, here we go. So this is how old Nan describes the winter. She says, "Oh, my sweet summer child, what do you know of fear? Fear is for the winter, my little lord, when the snows fall 100 feet deep and the ice winds come howling out of the north. Fear is for the long night, when the sun hides its face for years at a time, and little children are born and live and die all in darkness, while the dire wolves grow gaunt and hungry, and the White Walkers move through the woods." So, I think that's what we can expect. And they will. She goes on and on to describe the horrors of the winter, but she says that the others come riding on packs of pale white spiders as big as hounds. It's gonna be interesting. I don't know if we're gonna see the giant horse spiders. I think that would be. I did hear that this past weekend, or maybe it was the weekend before that, there was a con of Thrones, or a game, something like that. It was a convention, I think, in Nashville. And one of the people who works on the show, I think she was a sound engineer, said that the HBO has blown the budget wide open, that they've spent more money this year than they ever have before. And I think that we can expect that means more dragons, because the dragons are actually very expensive to produce.
It's all done with CGI though.
CGI is pretty expensive, it turns out. So we can probably expect more dragons, maybe new creatures like these ice spiders. We can expect more of the White Walkers. I think we can expect more battle scenes, all the expensive stuff. So.
How do they outdo Battle of the Bastards?
I don't know how you judge, but I think you could make it a pretty impressive. And I don't know that we would even get this season a battle between the dragons and the White Walkers. I think that's probably season 8 material, right? Because you gotta
get there.
Gotta get there. But we might see them come. I'm wondering if we're going to see them breach the wall this season.
Right.
See the White Walkers breach the wall. And I think that'll be interesting. I think it would be a very expensive shot to show the wall crumbling down. That would be a very interesting thing to see, and a terrifying thing to see, because we know what that would mean. So I think we're in for an exciting season. And like I said, we'll be here to talk about it at 9 o'clock on Monday morning.
All right.
So tune in, and we will repost that video later on. So thank you everybody for coming.
Thank you.
And hopefully we'll see you next week. It'll be fun. We'll talk about all the crazy fan theories, what we think we can expect, speculation nation. It'll be fun.
And keep the conversation going on this post. That's
absolutely. If you make comments on this post and you have questions, I will get back to you. I monitor our Facebook page daily, so absolutely. If you have questions, you can ask us on Twitter too. You can ask us on through direct message if you want. We are very approachable.
Thank you very much.
You're very welcome.